Hi there and welcome to Magic. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get started with the Magic dashboard. If you're watching this video, you're probably already at the Magic dashboard, implying that your screen should resemble something equivalent to what this shows you currently. Now, the first thing I'm going to teach you is to connect to your existing database. Simply go to Create, click Databases, and then here you see your Magic database. It's an SQLite database, and you can also install plugin databases. However, to connect your existing database, you're going to have to go to Connect to Database. Then you're going to have to choose your type. For instance, SQL Server. I have a Microsoft SQL Server connection string on my clipboard. Then you're going to have to give your connection a name. This should be something like foo or bar or hello _ world. It should not have spaces, and it should probably only be small letters. Let's call mine foo, and then I'm going to paste in my connection string. And unfortunately, I can't show you my connection string, so I'm blurring the screen currently now. But at this point, you can click test connection, and then you can click connects. And at this point, you can go to SQL Studio, and you can actually already at this point choose your SQL Server database type here. Then you can choose your foo connection string, and then you can see all the databases you actually have in that particular database. If you don't have an existing database already, or you just want to play with Magic to test its capabilities, you can actually install one of the plugin databases. That can be accomplished at the same place. You go to Create, you click Databases, and you simply choose one of these guys down here. We distribute Magic out of the box with 3 example databases that you can use as you see fit, just to simply play around with it. And this will give you a database out of the box. It will download a database from our plugin repository and install it on your server, at which point, yet again, you can go to SQL Studio. This time, we only supply SQLite database types. You will see that you have your database here, and you can actually go through it and look at its schema. When you are clicking foreign keys, you will see that it brings you to the related table, etc. And this allows you to very easily and rapidly understand the structure of the database. And you can, of course, at this point, create new fields and modify the database as you see fit. However, maybe you want to start out by creating an app entirely from scratch. At this point, you can actually just go up here. Yet again, you start out at create/databases, and then you can actually create your own database. Let's call ours CRM. At which point you see now we have created a new database. It doesn't have any tables originally, but we can actually easily fix that by clicking the edit button here. At which point we're brought on here, and we can create a table, customers. Let's use the singular form on the primary key, and then we can start adding fields, name, column type, text, create, email, column type, text, create. So let's create another table just to show the foreign key capabilities of the database designer. Let's create a name here too, I guess, and then click choose text and click create. And now let's create a link from contacts to customers, foreign table, customers, and that's it, really. We've now created a foreign key, implying we have a one-to-many relationship between customers and contacts. And you can, of course, create as many tables as you wish. Now, of course, these are SQLite databases. If you have already connected to another database, such as I showed you previously in this video, then let's see if I can find my thing here. Then I can also go to create databases, and then I can choose. I can't click this tab because that would show my connection string. But if I click this tab now, I can actually create a new database inside of my SQL Server database too. When you have designed your database or connected to your existing database or downloaded the plugin database or whatever way you want to end up with a database, you can click create, and then you can click endpoint generator. You can also click here generate endpoints for this particular database, at which point it automatically populates these guys here at the top, allowing you to simply click the generate endpoints button, and 2 seconds later you have tons of lines of code depending upon the size of your database automatically created for you. If we go back now to create databases and choose as a larger one, for instance, Northwind here with 13 tables, you will see that it creates a significant amount of lines of code for us, effectively becoming an entire backend web API, wrapping every single database table in our system with all 4 CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. And of course, you can also go through and configure one table at a time. Here I can change the, authorization requirements of the create, read, update, and delete endpoints as I see fit. I can log invocations to, for instance, delete, update, or create. I can add reCAPTCHA values. I can apply my reCAPTCHA value for create and update if I want to. And I can add caching. Let's say I want to have 60 seconds of cache. I want to have public caching, implying proxies will cache it. I want to publish signal R messages upon invocation to write endpoints with the inherited authorization requirements, implying the same authorization requirements I have up here. Or I can override it with specific roles for instance, root and guests on signal R message publishing. I can choose whether or not I want to apply left joins. I want to have verbose arguments. If I click verbose, I get like 10 times as many possible filtering criteria, most of which are actually kind of useless, and whether or not I want to overwrite any existing files or not. And then, of course, here at the bottom, I can apply any typically validators, right? Validator enum, :x, @ dot argument / name must be, actually, let's not do enum, let's do string, minimum size 5, maximum size 70. Right. Now, if I click generate endpoints, these settings will be, and as you can see, the module already exists, so I need to check off overwrite here. Then I will get all these particular settings for this particular table, implying categories. So, and that's how you generate a CRUD API after you have connected to your database. You can also actually generate an SQL type of endpoint here too, if you want to, where you can actually manually write SQL. Select all from, let's choose CRM, from customers, where, blah, 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 etc., etc. And this creates an SQL endpoint for you automatically, where you still yet again can also, apply authorization and methods, HTTP methods for your endpoints, etc. Then when you are done creating your backend, you can also have Magic optionally automatically create the frontend for you. Arguably, the frontend generator isn't equally strong as the backend generator, but it's still good enough to create a fairly decent starter kit for you. At this point, you can check on or off particular modules we want to. Let's say we only want to generate a frontend wrapping our north wind parts of our web API endpoints. And then we want to have the color purple. We want to give our app a name, north wind, and then let's say we want to have the light theme of the purple theme. Then we can go down here and we can click generate, or we can click download. This is a little bit up to you whether or not you want to download the code locally to edit it locally using VS Code, or if you want to edit it using Hyper-ID, at which point you click generate, at which point the code is automatically generated inside of your cloudlet, and you can now go to the front-end IDE and you can actually find your front-end code here. And this is an Angular app, completely created for you, 100% automatically. As you can see, here are our table. Here's the categories table, the HTML file, SCSS file, TypeScript file, etc., etc. You can click Alt-M or Option-M on a Mac to maximize the code view editor in Hyper-ID. And at this point, when you're done editing your code, you can actually download the folder. See, I click the folder Northwind, then I download the entire folder, and actually the system automatically contains, if you see here now, I unzip this guy and I open this folder. I can't actually see it here because it's a hidden folder, but if you see here on GitHub /workflows/deploy to cloudlet YAML, then actually this is CI/CD integration, implying if I push this to GitHub, then this is a GitHub workflow action, implying it will actually automatically deploy my front end to my cloudlet every single time I push towards the master or main branch. At this point, you are going to have to generate a token For your cloudlet, a token is basically an authorization mechanism that GitHub needs in order to be able to securely copy and deploy the code after its build process to your cloudlet. And basically, it's just copy the clipboard and go to GitHub, import the zip file as a GitHub project, and then you go to settings here and click secrets, you click actions, and you create a new repository secret, and you call it token, very important, caps only. And then you paste in your token here. Of course, I'm going to destroy this cloudlet, so this token, even though you can copy and paste it, is going to be useless after I've actually done so. Now, when I've done that, then every single time, assuming you're capable of actually creating a GitHub project containing this code here and importing this into a GitHub project, then actually every single time you push towards the master or main branch at that particular GitHub repository, 5 minutes later, boom, everything's going to be automatically deployed on your cloudlet's root URL. And here you see tiger-polterguy.gb.aista.com. That would be the root URL. So I would have to type tiger-polterguy.gb.aista.com. And of course, this is going to fail because I don't have anything here. But let me show you exactly how it works by simply creating a new file here, calling it index.html, and right here, file successfully created. Hello world, this was served by pure magic. Ta-da! Save the file. Now I refresh, and there we go. So this is actually what the internal CI/CD pipeline is actually going to do. It's actually going to build your Angular code on GitHub servers, then actually copy and paste the end result into this folder. And of course, you can actually put anything into the www folder you wish. For instance, you can go to google.com and you can search for static websites, template, free download, and whatever you can find here, you can basically download it and upload it and unzip it into your www folder. That's like 822 million hits here according to Google. Probably not quite as many good website template downloads that are free, but probably not too far away either. So anyways, that's how you generate the front end and or use the front end capabilities of Magic. I'm going to go deeper into the front end capabilities of Magic because you can actually provide Hyperlambda code behind files for your HTML files as you see fit. Maybe you are in a multi-user environment, you're working in a company, there are 3 developers in this particular company, and you want all of them to have some sort of like access rights towards your backend cloudlet. Okay, manage users and roles, and here you can create as many users as you want to. Foo, password foo, email address optional, full name optional, and you can associate it with 1 or more roles as you see fit. Now I'm associating this guy with user and root, and I'm creating a new user here now. And here you can see my user. Of course, I chose a ridiculous password, so I should probably delete this guy, at which point you can delete it easily. And you can also edit. You can't edit the root user that good. But if I create another user here now, and I click save, and then I choose that user, and I click edit here now, you can see I can change the roles the user is associated with. I can add the field name, John Doe. I can add another field, email, john@doe.com, etc., etc. I can lock the user out of the system, at which point the user can no longer log into the system, etc., etc. So that's how you're managing users, and you can also manage roles in the system and create as many roles as you want to. Foo, this is the foo role. And ta-da, I now have a new role in the system. And of course, the role system is completely dynamic. Then, of course, since Magic is primarily a back-end software development automation web API generator, obviously, you'd at some point want to try out your endpoints. Well, that is very, very easy. Click manage, go to endpoints, at which point you're led on to a Swagger similar type of interface where you can immediately start, invoking endpoints and returning values as you see fit. If we, for instance, go to Northwind, we find categories, we invoke it and try it out. You can see we have 8 categories. Let's retrieve the categories. And try that one, at which point you can see it returns all categories back to me. Now, you first expand it, but you actually have to click this little arrow to choose that thing over in the right-hand side here, such that you can actually try it out. And you also have to scroll. We have some screen real estate issues here, arguably. So, I mean, you're going to have to get used to scrolling inside of divs the way you see here. But anyways, it is what it is, and we are constantly improving on it. Then maybe you have some tasks you want to execute. Tasks are basically, you can find it manage/tasks here. They're basically Hyperlambda snippets. By the way, do not delete this one, otherwise your cloudlet's going to run out of hard drive space inevitably over a couple of months. You can create a new task, call it foo. Whoops. Call the task foo. This is the foo task. And then you can write any amount of Hyperlambda inside of this task as you see fit. Control space or function control space on Mac shows autocomplete in every single time you can write Hyperlambda. And now I can, if I create a new task now, I call it foo and I give it this description and I save the task, then I can immediately execute the task. Now I click the execute button. If I go now to misc/log, you will see that actually it logged hello world from task here for me. In addition, I can also schedule a task by clicking the schedule button here, at which point I'm brought onto this guy, allowing me to either schedule the task for being executed once sometime in the future, or I can repeat it, for instance, every 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and then I can choose seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, and months. Now, for instance, task is being scheduled for being repeated once every 5 months, right? I can also add custom repetition values, which allows me to write stuff such as 01 dot 05 dot 23 dot 59 dot 59. What this means basically means the first month, January, right? That's the first month of the year. The 5th day in that month at military hour 23.59.59. And these guys, the months and the days, can also be ORed together. So if I do pipe here and I write 03, pipe 05, pipe 07, pipe 09, pipe 11, that means that this task is going to be executed every odd month at the 5th day in that month. And I can do pipe here too, do pipe 25, implying it's going to be executed both on the 5th of every single month and on the 25th of every single month. However, at this particular point in time. And I can also do weekdays and stuff like that further down. It works similarly. If I now create a schedule, this task is going to be executed on the 5th and the 25th of every single odd month, implying January, March, May, etc., etc. And of course, I can delete schedules as I see fit, and I can also delete tasks as I see fit. Then, of course, at some point in time, inevitably, you are going to have to teach yourself Hyperlambda. Now, of course, if you go to aista.com/Hyperlambda, we have a full 5-hour YouTube-based course, hands-on, with plenty of exercises. Whoops, not Hyperlambda, Hyperlambda-101. Here, you can find it at aista.com. You can find it under tutorials, Hyperlambda course 101. And this course lasts for a total of like 5, 6, 7 hours of YouTube videos guiding you through. It starts at the top. You're supposed to watch 01, then 2, 3, etc. And it walks you through every single major concept in Hyperlambda. However, more importantly is, of course, that the place where you want to actually exercise for the most parts is you want to go to manage, and then you want to go to Hyperlambda Playground. And at this point, you can also load snippets that shows and illustrates some particular construct in Hyperlambda. If I now write destination here now, function F5 on a Mac or F5 on Windows, make sure this thing has focus, otherwise you're going to refresh the page, which is probably not what you want to do. Then you will see the result of the evaluation. I can find snippets, for instance, for formatting my code in some module. If I write system here, for instance, then it's going to perfectly format my. I didn't find that one. So let's do modules. Actually, system auth. Okay, so I'm now formatting all my code inside of my system/auth folder perfectly nicely. It's like the equivalent of Shift Option F in VS Code. And as you can see here, there's a lot of there's lots of examples. Here's how to send an email. Here's how to delete using the CRUD slots. Here's how to create a MIME message. Here's how to create multiple threads. Here's how to write a for each loop, etc., etc. Here's how to invoke an HTTP GET invocation, etc., etc., etc. So this combined with the Hyperlambda course is probably going to keep you busy for a couple of days, at which point after roughly a week or something, you're going to have been able to having taught yourself Hyperlambda. Typically it takes like 3 to 5 days to learn Hyperlambda, and it takes like 3 to 4 weeks for a senior developer to actually master it and like completely master it. So I mean, in comparison to C# that arguably takes like half a decade to learn, Hyperlambda is a ridiculous simple to understand programming language. And this of course is because it's a declarative programming language with metadata capabilities. So I mean, it's much more expressive and super high level than your average typical traditional programming language. Then at some point, you might want to play around with WebSockets. Magic encapsulates SignalR perfectly. You can find that in Manage. You can find sockets here. Now I can see all the socket messages that are published by my particular backend, or I can create a new subscription. At this point, I'm now subscribing to the foo message, and I can publish the foo message. Now, of course, part of the point is here now that I could actually have published this in a different browser, and I would immediately see the message pop up here like this. However, that's an exercise for you to follow through with if you want to play around with sockets. And of course, the socket implementation in Hyperlambda is ridiculously scalable. It builds upon .NET Core version 6 version of SignalR, so it can probably handle easily tens of thousands of simultaneous connections.